1950 or 7-1, Germany. Today is much worse, isn't it? 50 is a circumstantial defeat, right? It happens. It's part of football, isn't it? Now 7-1, it's also part of football, but it's an aberration. I think that this game today, in the toughest way, brings a reality check to Brazilian football. We've had a few. We had one at the end of the '98 World Cup, when Brazil against France showed themselves to be very disorganized, as they were throughout the Cup, making bit-by-bit progress. And then it relied on the story of Ronaldo's problem. That served as a smokescreen, didn't it? By the way, they love smokescreens to cover up the disparity of teams as a team, as a coaching job. Zagallo was already an outdated coach. This is repeated now with Luis Felipe Scolari, a coach who, in my opinion, is as outdated as Zagallo was at that time, and his peers as well. Tosin Amorim, who was an assistant, but Pereira was even retired. Suddenly he rises from the ashes to star in another fiasco in the World Cup. This is a coach who was also knocked out in the group stages of the South Cup, something that has never happened before, and who was fired during a World Cup in Saudi Arabia, if I remember correctly. But I think this is an opportunity for us to demand more, not just from the managers who, as Trajano said, are very bad and have a responsibility for this, but also from the coaches. I totally agree with what Trajano said about the working conditions that were presented. It's one thing to have managers who aren't good for Brazilian football, for the structure of football, for the clubs, for the leagues, or for the development of new players. Okay, I think that's pretty much undeniable, but the Brazil national team is another thing entirely. You're the coach, you pick your own people, you've got a renovated training facility, you can pick anyone you want, you've got a whole menu of Brazilian players to choose from. It's a great menu, it's worth noting that. You've got a reasonable amount of time to put together this roster. It's not like starting from scorched earth because the previous coach did all the tough work to get this coaching stuff in place. And Mano Menezes was the basis for the players who got called up. And the Brazilian national team, it lived for a year off of a fantasy performance one afternoon against Spain. After a Confederations Cup with peaks and valleys, a tournament that Brazil has won the last 3 times and flopped in the last 3 World Cups, and this time it made it to the... It's crystal clear that the Confederations Cup is a sham that I like. It's useless. It's just meant to fool people, to trick the people who want to be tricked. And today, I think in today's match, when the lineup was announced, it was a total shock. I was terrified. I said, what's he thinking putting Bernard on? He looked like a kid playing with adults. It was pitiful. And Germany, what did they do? At the very start, Germany just waited for Brazil. Go on, you make your move. Brazil attempted to, cornering the area. But even before the first goal, Milius manhandled Toni Kroos alone within the penalty zone. And that was just the start. This guy is shooting all alone at the start of the game, inside the box. And this scenario repeated itself over and over again. And the score built up like it was just a practice run is underway for the final. It felt like a collective preparation for an important game against the under-17 team. It was a walk in the park, largely due to a badly assembled team because of very poor work. And I find it astonishing that afterwards in the press conference, Felipao didn't admit this. Address, minimize your own mistakes. It felt like it wasn't the wrong goal to me. I think it looked like a normal defeat, but it wasn't. Brazil was really badly structured, badly chosen, totally unprepared to face an opponent they knew would be a powerful opponent. And it was easy prey as it couldn't be. Brazil has good players. Brazil has a jersey that carries weight. Brazil played home. The fans were on their side. It couldn't be. It is inadmissible that Brazil would show up like this in a game like this. I can't stomach this one. Unacceptable. It was a disgrace, true, but a disgrace with explanations. And I think the explanations passed through there. And even with regard to what Paulo said about a conference and everything, I find these ideas interesting, but it depends on who participates. Because getting together these coaches who are going to sit there laying down rules and not admitting their own incapacity won't do any good. They already do their own conference down there. There are those events that they do at the end of the year in Rio de Janeiro. Garza for Pereira. Garza for Pereira. Nothing comes from it. What important things come from there? What happened? Every now and then an international guest comes along and makes a splash. The press gives interviews and stuff. The guy gives interviews and everyone praises them. But what comes out of it? Who are we going to bring together? Muricy Ramalho, Pereira, Zagallo, Mano Menezes, Wanderlei Luxemburgo. Are they going to say what's going to change in Brazilian soccer? They're not going to change anything, folks. They're not going to change anything. So what we need here is to be critical of Brazilian soccer from top to bottom. And it's important to emphasize that Pereira and Felipao are grown men. It seems to me that they are independent. I think they don't need these jobs, and they can inhabit the same space in Brazil.